On November 24, 1971, a man calling himself Don Cooper walked up to the Northwest Orient Airlines counter in Portland, Oregon. He was in his mid-40s, dressed in a business suit with a black tie and a white shirt. He paid cash for a one-way ticket on Flight 305 to Seattle, Washington. On board, he sat in seat 180, lit a cigarette, and ordered a bourbon and soda. Shortly after takeoff, he passed a note to a flight attendant named Florence. Thinking it was just another lonely businessman's phone number, she dropped it into her purse. He leaned closer and said, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." The note was printed in neat all-capital letters. It stated that he had a bomb in his briefcase and wanted her to sit with him. Stunned, Florence did as she was told. Cooper calmly opened his briefcase, giving her a glimpse of 8 red cylinders attached to wires and a large battery. He then stated his demands: $200,000 in unmarked $20 bills for parachutes due primary and to reserve, and a fuel truck ready in Seattle to refuel the plane upon arrival. Florence relayed the message to the cockpit. The captain, William Scott, contacted Seattle-Tacoma International Airport Air Traffic Control, which in turn informed local and federal authorities. The airline's president, Donald Nero, authorized the ransom payment, deciding that the lives of the 36 passengers and 6 crew members were worth more than the money. On Tegrond, an intense operation began. FBI agents scrambled to gather the ransom money, photographing every single bill. Meanwhile, in the air, Cooper remained eerily calm. He sipped his bourbon and even paid his drink tab. The other passengers had no idea what was happening. They were simply told that arrival in Seattle would be delayed due to a minor mechanical issue. The plane circled Puget Sound for about 2 hours, allowing the FBI enough time to get the money and parachutes ready. Cooper was specific about the parachutes, which led investigators to believe he had some skydiving or military experience. When Flight 305 finally landed at Seattle-Tacoma Airport, Cooper instructed the pilot to taxi to an isolated, brightly lit area of the tarmac. He demanded that all window shades be closed to prevent any snipers from having a clear shot. An airline employee delivered the cash-filled knapsack and the parachutes. In exchange, Cooper allowed all passengers and 2 of the flight attendants, including Florence Schaffner, to leave the plane. He kept the pilots, a flight engineer, and 1 flight attendant on board. While the plane was being refueled, Cooper outlined his new plan to the cockpit crew. They were to take off and fly to Mexico City, but with specific instructions. They had to fly at a low altitude of 10,000 feet at a slow airspeed of about 100 knots, and with the landing gear down. The cabin was to remain unpressurized. The pilots were skeptical, explaining that this flight path and the plane's configuration would limit their range, meaning they wouldn't make it to Mexico City. After some negotiation, they agreed on a new destination, Reno, Nevada, for another refueling stop. Just before 8 p.m., the Boeing 727 took off again, heading south. Only 5 people were now on board: Cooper, the 2 pilots, a flight engineer, and a flight attendant. Cooper told the remaining crew to stay in the cockpit with the door closed. Sometime after 8 p.m., over a rugged, forested area somewhere between Seattle and Reno, Cooper did the unthinkable. He went to the rear of the plane, lowered the aft air stair, a unique feature of the 727, and With the $200,000 strapped to his body, he leaped out into the freezing, rainy night. He vanished into the wilderness and into legend. When the plane landed safely in Reno a couple of hours later, authorities swarmed the aircraft. All they found was Cooper's black tie, a tie clip, and 2 of the 4 parachutes he had requested. A massive search operation was launched in the probable jump zone over southwestern Washington. The FBI, local police, and Army troops scoured the dense forests for months, but they found nothing. No body, no parachute, no money. It was as if D.B. Cooper had simply disappeared into thin air. A media era led to him being called D.B. Cooper, and the name stuck, becoming synonymous with this audacious crime. The FBI investigation, codenamed NORJAK for Northwest Hijacking, became one of the longest and most extensive in its history. Agents investigated over 1,000 suspects in the first 5 years alone, but none of them could be definitively identified as the hijacker. The detailed description of Cooper was vague enough to fit countless men. His knowledge of the aircraft, particularly the aft air-stair mechanism, and his specific parachute demands, suggested he was no amateur. Was he a disgruntled veteran, an engineer, an experienced paratrooper? Theories abounded. For years, the case went cold. There were no credible sightings, no leads, and none of the ransom money ever turned up in circulation. The FBI had distributed the serial numbers of the bills to banks and casinos, but not a single one surfaced. It seemed Cooper had either died in the jump or had successfully laundered the cash and started a new life. Then, in February 1980, a breakthrough. An 8-year-old boy named Brian Ingram was on a family vacation, digging in the sand along the Columbia River near Tinnabar, Washington. He unearthed 3 rotting bundles of cash. When his family took the money to the police, the FBI confirmed the serial numbers matched the bills given to Cooper. They found nearly $5,800, all in $20 bills. This discovery was huge, but it also deepened the mystery. The location was miles away from the originally estimated jump zone. How did the money get there? Was it washed downstream? Did Cooper bury it and plan to come back? Or did it simply fall from his pack during the jump? Experts analyzed the bundles and concluded they were likely deposited by the river, but the rest of the money, over $194,000, was still missing. The discovery of the money reignited public interest and spawned a new wave of theories. Some believed Cooper didn't survive the jump. The weather was terrible. He was jumping at night into a dense, mountainous forest, and he wasn't dressed for the extreme cold. It's highly probable he was killed on impact or died of exposure. If so, where was his body? Others maintained that he survived. They argue that he was a skilled survivalist who knew the area well. Maybe he had an accomplice waiting on the ground. The fact that he requested 4 parachutes led some to speculate he was bluffing about having a partner, or that he used one to weigh down the money bag. Over the decades, several men have been put forward as potential suspects. There was Richard McCoy Jr., a Vietnam veteran who staged a similar hijacking just months after Cooper's parachuting out of a plane with $500,000. It was caught, but he always denied being Cooper, and key details didn't match. Another prominent suspect was a man named Dwayne Weber, who on his deathbed in 1995 confessed to his wife, "I'm Don Cooper." His wife later connected several pieces of circumstantial evidence, but DNA tests were inconclusive. The list of suspects is long and fascinating, each with their own compelling story, but the FBI has never been able to officially name anyone. In 2011, a new piece of evidence came to light. A team of citizen scientists examined the tie Cooper left behind on the plane using an electron microscope. They discovered particles of rare earth elements, specifically pure titanium and cerium. These materials were uncommon in the early 1970s, but were used in very specific high-tech industries, like Boeing's own manufacturing plants or chemical firms. This suggested Cooper might have been an engineer or a manager at a plant that used these metals, narrowing the field of potential suspects. Yet, even with this clue, his identity remains elusive. In July 2016, the FBI officially announced they were suspending the active investigation of the D.B. Cooper case to focus resources on other priorities. After 45 years, the trail had gone cold. The case file remains open, but no agent is actively assigned to it. It stands as the only unsolved case of air piracy in American commercial aviation history. So, what really happened to D.B. Cooper? Did he perish in the unforgiving wilderness of the Pacific Northwest? His skeleton and the rest of the money lying undiscovered to this day? Or did he pull off the perfect crime, living out his days in quiet anonymity, forever watching his own legend grow? The man who called himself Dan Cooper boarded a plane with a plan and walked away, or rather jumped away into history, leaving behind a legacy of intrigue that continues to captivate us half a century later. He is a modern folk hero to some, a reckless criminal to others, but to everyone, he is an enduring American mystery. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more deep dives into history's greatest unsolved cases.